Hello everybody, welcome to Crafty Soup. My name is Misty. As part of the design team over at the Scrap Happy membership group, I am playing with some pretty spring vibes today. I have got some plain white washi tape. We're going to alter that up with ordinary markers, and we're going to be playing with rolled flower dies to create some real artfulness on our projects today. I've got two projects for you, so let's dive in. To get started, here's a look at where we're heading with the entirety of this layout project, but we're going to start with talking about altering washi tape. I have done this recently with acrylic paint products, but today I want to do it with just plain old markers, and I found after that acrylic video that I did that there is plain washi tape out there. So why wouldn't you just buy already made washi tape? And there's a couple of reasons you might want to alter your own. One, you can get the colors to be whatever colors you want to go with your project. You can also buy one roll of washi tape and alter it in different ways to go with different projects instead of having to buy like 5 rolls of washi tape to go with different projects. So you're going to save money and space as well. And then with this very specific project, I want to use the washi tape as grid lines. So it's going to give me very straight lines to work with. All right, to get started with this washi tape altering, you should know something about washi tape first. Most washi tapes have a little bit of a water-resistant coating on them. This washi tape does as well. However, it's not so waterproof that it won't let the markers stick, but it will cause the color to bead up as we work with it. Just keep in mind that not all washi tape will behave the same. But if you get this one, I know how it's behaving. And when we're adding water to these colors that we laid down with the markers, you can see that the color is starting to bead up. And I wanted that really drippy washi look to go with kind of the weather vibes of spring where the color is starting to come, but sometimes the weather still feels gray and messy, but you know the bright, happy colors are right there waiting for you. Okay, I did start this project by laying my washi tape down on a plastic clipboard so I could leave it in place and let it dry. However, if you're careful, you can do this directly on cardstock. And here I'm starting off with the cardstock I wanted to use for my project, but you'll see me in a moment that I decide to change out the color because it's blending in a little too much. But I'm laying my cardstock down on my grid mat, and I'm just choosing to use the 4-inch marks to create a grid on this. So straight up and down, I'm going to put it at 4 inches and 8 inches, and that's going to give me 3 equal grid portions, and then I will rotate the paper and do it the other way. When my washi tape is in place, I will go ahead and start altering it up and coloring it. You just have to be careful not to go over the edge of the washi tape, but I didn't find that to be too difficult, so I'd say you can give it a try and see how it goes, or put it on plastic clipboard, glass mat, whatever craft mat you have, you can always do it off your project. And that way, if you do mess it up, you can toss it out. But it's a little bit more forgiving, and we'll get to that with a bonus card project towards the end. All right, here I'm going ahead and adding my water straight to my washi tape. And what's nice about the washi tape is that I'm getting those nice straight lines. You see, I did go over the edge a little bit, but I'm going to be adding more watercolor to this layout, so it's not going to be super noticeable, but it depends on what kind of layout you're doing. Okay, as I continue to add water to this, I just want to give you a tip that if you add less water, you'll get more solid, darker colors, and if you add more water, it will bead up a lot more and dilute the color to a softer hue. While I continue to paint, let's talk a little bit more about how this washi tape is helpful. If you wanted to add marker color straight to cardstock and then dilute it down and get it to move around, it does not work. Cardstock just soaks that pigment right up, and not only will the water mess up your cardstock, but the color just won't move. Now, you can do this on a watercolor cardstock because that paper is created exactly to be able to let the color move around. However, when you do move the color, you're getting very bold color and you're not getting that beaded look. And here's a comparison. And just for a fun little aside, you can get a drippier look with your watercolor paper if you spray it with water. So there are ways to make it work on watercolor paper, but the washi tape just has those slightly water repellent properties to make it bead up naturally, and you don't have to put the effort into thinking about that. All right, so I am back with my first page of my layout. I will be doing a double page spread here. The other side is just the same, really. I have my grid going on, and like I said, I am going to add extra watercolor onto this, and I'm going to use the packaging or the smooshing technique. And here's where I realized, I need to mask off other areas so that I don't get the ink where I don't want it to go. So as I grab that, let's talk about the watercolor smooshing technique a little bit. There are different ways to do this, but as you know, I scribbled my markers onto my glass surface, sprayed a little bit of water, and then I'm touching, I've got a thick plastic, more like an acetate sheet, that I'm touching into that water. And when I first touched the acetate to my project, you notice that I got more kind of polka dots. But if you add more water and kind of rub and press that in, then you'll get more of a smushy look, a puddly look. So it just depends on what the look you want. And you can also mix and match them. So if you put down a puddle first and then add more of that polka dot on top, you can get a lot more depth and dimension. But I'm just keeping it simple, and I'm going for the smushy watercolory look. I add some color, I smush it down. And the other thing I want to talk about, the layout that I'm doing is going to show off pictures throughout the progress of a year. So the colors of markers I chose are going to represent the colors of each month. So here I am moving into the warmer months, and I'm mixing mostly yellow with a little bit of orange. And then as I move later on towards fall, I will add in some red. Then even later into fall, I'm going to add mostly orange with a little bit of red. Now, as I get into October and November, I want to use some color theory to lean my colors towards brown. So orange and teal are both secondary colors on the color wheel, and they're opposite each other on the color wheel. And if you mix opposite colors on the color wheel, you're going to lean your colors towards brown. And it just depends on the amount of pigment in each color. So you can see I got an orange, but it's leaning towards brown. So that's what I'm looking for. Now, as I move on to the final fall month of November, I'm going to mix all three of the secondary colors from the color wheel. So I've got teal, orange, and purple. And when all of these come together, I'm going to lean even more brown than it was before. So you can see I just kind of mix them up on the paper. And if you leave it like that, you can get a gradient rainbow with some of that brown happening. But I'm going to go ahead and smush it down so that I'm really getting some brown in there. But you'll notice some of those tones are still in the shadows of my brown. So I'm getting a richer depth of color when I'm mixing it myself. All right, with my base pages dry, I want to add the month stamped onto each square that it goes with. I have a stamp set that's really old from Stampin' Up! That has the months on it. And I'm going to use my Sizzix stamp platform. I love this platform. I used to use the Misty all the time, but I could not fit 12 by 12 layouts in the Misty. And this platform, I can do all of it. I can do my card making, I can do my 12 by 12 scrapbook layouts, and I love this platform. And the lid comes off if you want to take it off to clean it or to get it out of the way for doing like stenciling. So I have a whole video on this platform because I love it that much, and I will leave you a link to that if you are curious about this. So here I am multi-stamping my title because I want to get it nice and crisply black so that it is not competing with the watercolor. Now I rotated my paper so that I could get the next word onto my project, and I will just keep going with this process until I have all my months on there. Now that my foundation is complete, I am working on my photos. I am showing off different flowers from my garden that bloom during different seasons. I have flowers in my garden that bloom all year long, although I couldn't find a photo from December, so I'm going to need to get one of those. It's a lot of the same flowers as January and February, but I need an actual December photo. All right, so with that base of my layout done, I want to use those open squares to create dimension and texture, and I'm going to do that with rolled flowers. Now, I just showed you an example of a colored rolled flower, but I don't want the color to compete with everything else on my layout, so I'm going to do this all in white for tone-on-tone texture. So I did spend some time die cutting, and this rolled flower set is from Crafter's Companion. I got it on a super deal over on scrapbook.com, and I will leave you a link to that. It was on sale for like $8, and this set is going to be a workhorse for me. So if you want to go check that out and see if it's still on sale, I suspect they might be discontinuing it, and that's might be why I got such a good deal. So it's possible that it's still there. So I will leave you a link and you can go check that out. And by the way, if you use my shopping links, I really do appreciate it because that helps provide me with some income to keep these projects coming to you. So I really do appreciate it. And it doesn't cost you anything extra. If you're already doing some shopping, that's a good reason to use any YouTube content creators affiliate links. All right, you can see that I was creating some of those flowers. This set also has some flat flowers. Those rolled flowers have chunky dimension, and if you do not want that in your layouts, then just go with the flat flowers. But the chunky flowers are great for cards that you're hand delivering. I don't mind this bit of chunk in some of my layouts. I wouldn't do it with every layout, but sometimes I also just display layouts on the wall, and the chunk on that is just fine. So if you want to put up some more displayed artwork that's based on your scrapbooking skills, then that could work for that as well. I did zhuzh those flat flowers a little bit so they have a little bit of dimension, and I did all the building of the flowers off camera. Now, because I cut these all out of scraps, I didn't realize that some of my scraps had color on the backside, so when I started rolling them, they were awkward. And not all white is white. Even though you saw me had a pile of white paper, you can see some of these flowers look more creamy or off-white. I tried making some more, but I think I used up all of my pure white paper. So what I'm going to do is just mix and match so that each cluster has a few shades of white. So it's not all just pure white. And that actually lends to the tone-on-tone texture that I'm going for anyway. So that works out in the end. I did have extra flowers left over, and that's where a card creation is going to come into play. So don't go just yet. We will get to that. To finish off this layout, I'm keeping up with that tone-on-tone, and I am adding some white enamel dots from Hero Arts. And my base card stock that I'm using is called Fog from Spellbinders. And it's an ever so subtle shade of gray so that my white flowers and my washi tape help pop against the background. So here are a couple of still photos of this double page layout before we get to that bonus card project, which uses a lot of the same ideas and techniques just to create a card, and I have one extra goodie that I do with that card. So let's move on to that. To get this card started, I cut down a card front to 3 3/4 by 5. And I'm just going to line it up on my grid mat and place my tape down much like I did on my layout background. I will do it at every 1 inch mark, and it's hard to see on the camera, but it is there. And I'm going to go ahead and color it. Now, here is another benefit to that washi tape that I mentioned earlier, is that if you make a little boo-boo where I put 2 of the same color down, you can take a damp cloth and just wipe it back up and fix your boo-boo. So I won't repeat all the same steps that I did on my layout because you've already seen those, but I will show you the extra things that I added to the card project. And I took the same exact colors that I used on my washi tape and added some splatters to my flowers, especially since that flower already had some blue on it. I increased the look of that. Now here's a tip when using markers as watercolor. Light colors are going to wash out really easily, so you want to use a lot of it and try not to use very much water. And this could take a little bit of time to try and get that color to transfer, but I think it's worth it in the end. And here is my little speckled yellow flower. I'm going to do multiples of those. While I was doing those flowers, my background was drying, and I went ahead and ran it through an embossing folder with those washi tape stripes on there, and it's just pretty color and texture all flowing together, and I am in love with it. I hope you are in love with it too. Just the softness and the sweet colors is very happy for moving us out of the dreariness of winter and into spring. So to finish off this card, I have a stamp set from Hero Arts that is not really available, but perhaps you have a Happy Spring stamp in your collection. And did you know that you can use markers right on your stamps instead of stamping ink? And that is going to make all the colors in your project totally coordinate. So I punched out some green leaves to add that pop of color to really draw the eye to my message, and I did test my color on the back of my leaf first. So the thing that I do when I color up my stamps with markers is I breathe on it to help keep that ink evenly spread and moist on my stamp before I stamp it down on my paper. And as I was saying, I used those green leaves as a really striking pop of color for some contrast so that it would really draw the eye to that greeting. A little bit of foam tape to pop everything up on my card base, and then I realized my trimmer needs a new blade because I had some little fuzzies on my black cardstock matte layer, and so I'm going to go ahead and fix that, and then we'll take a look at some of the still photos on this one. So here we go. I really enjoyed doing this very light and bright card for spring. So there you go. That was my artful goodness. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a couple tips and tricks to bring artfulness to your own projects. I will be back soon with more crafty videos for you, and until then, have an artful day.